Well, Joseph, no surprise that our first subject today is the loss of Phil Hughes, a public outpouring of mourning, obviously so. What's your take, though, on the impact on the game from here on in? Is there any change?
I think it'll be a short-term change. I think, like the New Zealand played Pakistan in the test the next day and there wasn't a bouncer bowled that day. So there's an immediate change where people are pretty sombre about the whole thing and reflect on it. But I would have thought long-term cricket will click back into the way it was. It does give you pause for reflection, though. I mean, it was a freak accident with Phil Hughes. Everybody knows that. But nevertheless, you wonder if cricket, it just gives you a moment to think, has cricket stepped over the bounds? And I think of things like Brett Lee bowling at Piers Morgan's body there and everyone laughing and thinking it was a great joke. Piers Morgan, a middle-aged guy who can't play cricket. And even Dale Steyn going round the wicket and bowling bounces at Jeetan Patel, and everyone saying Jeetan Patel's not brave and so on. And in fact, you wonder the motivation behind Steyn and whether that was very clever in hindsight to aim to maim someone.
I tried to liken it to if there's an injury in a scrum, a neck break, there's immediately a review of the laws, and we see now the touch, pause, engage. It's all a consequence of those injuries. Do you see anything similar coming out with cricket?
No, I can't see that. I mean, you can't take away the bouncer from cricket or you don't have cricket, so I don't see that happening. And it's more the player's attitude. You'd like to think that it just went down one notch and it was still an aggressive sport and people were trying to bowl fast and hit hard and so on, but just a little bit more maturity and perspective over the whole thing.
And I think they have to manage the mourning process quite well, not to make it so much so that people think, oh my goodness, it's another Phil Hughes thing. Otherwise they take away what has been a special focus.
That's true, but I must say, cricketers around the world have felt it deeply. I went and visited Martin Crowe on the weekend, and he's got he had this range of bats made 299, because only he and Don Bradman had made 299 in a test match, brackets, and Bradman was not out, and the bat was signed by both of them, and he had the bat leaning against his front door with his black cap on the top, and I think that's been replicated around the world really. So and it's not just a gesture. I think people have felt touched by it, and I think they've thought, could have been me. I mean, Crowe was saying, well, I got hit 11 times, and he was talking about the 11 times he got hit, twice by Jeff Thompson on his test debut, and he was saying, I'm sure every batsman has thought, that could have been me.
Would it have had the same impact, and it should have, if it had been on Karori 9 at club cricket? Because it could have happened just as easily there, perhaps more so with a less skilled batsman.
Yeah, who's probably not wearing a helmet, incidentally, as well. Well, I think that was the reason it's had such an impact, is that you're talking about a really skilled batsman, a good player, a test player, who was on 63 and batting well, and I think it gives everyone pause for thought. If it can happen to Phil Hughes in that situation, who couldn't it happen to?
But then you go back to the numbers, I suppose. Cricket's gone a long time. I think they found one other incident of a similar tragedy, and in any sport, that's a pretty good strike rate. Yeah,
I mean, I can name quite a few incidents of great severity. People getting hit on the head, Bert Sutcliffe, Nari Contractor, Ewan Chatfield, and so on. But yeah, he died. I mean, it was a freak situation, a catastrophe, really. But as you say, over 150 years of Test cricket, that's not many, is it really?
It's interesting listening to what some fast bowlers were saying in the wake of this, that they do mean to intimidate, but they don't mean to hurt. But it's a little bit incongruous, that, isn't it? Because the prospect of getting hurt is the intimidation, isn't it?
I actually don't believe that they don't mean to hurt. I think when Dale Steyn was bowling at Jeetan Patel, he was aiming for his head and his body. There's no question to my mind that's what he was doing. I mean, Jeff Thompson and Dennis Lilly, that famous Ashes series 74, 75, I remember them on one TV show where they had a blackboard there with a body, a skeleton, and they were saying, we like to hit them, this is where I like to get him, and this one hurts here, and they were pointing to parts of the body. Great joke at the time, but there's no way you could say they weren't aiming to hurt.
And I guess long before that, Larwood, perhaps the most famous of the people who were not trying to hurt people, but they looked like he was.
Yeah, and there was that series in 54-5 where Frank Tyson bowled for England, and sconned Ray Lindwall, the opposing fast bowler, and in the next innings, Lindwall hit Tyson in the head both times. I mean, they can hit each other, and no helmets in those days. I think that it's been lucky there hasn't been more really tragic things that have happened, but if you go through and think about it quite deeply, more people have been hurt seriously than you'd imagine until you go and reflect on it.
I mean, the Chatfield one is obviously the one that came quickly to mind for New Zealanders, because that was a time of a person who couldn't defend himself against that kind of bowling, and was just a whisker away from the same situation we've got today. Yeah,
he was. He technically died that day. But Bert Sutcliffe and Nari Contractor, the Indian captain, were both fine batsmen whose careers were never the same after incidents with fast bowlers. And that's just in Test cricket, not first-class cricket or, as you say, club cricket. So I'm sure there's been a lot of incidents, and we should reflect on it and think, yeah, it's fine to... fast bowlers have to be hostile, otherwise they're not fast bowlers. But we just need to have some perspective.
And I suppose the prospect is slightly higher these days in that there is helmets, so therefore people are more prepared to play the crossback shots and put themselves at a little more risk.
Yeah, I'm amazed how often people get hit now. I mean, you almost can remember the times when batsmen not wearing helmets got hit on the head. It was so rare because they couldn't afford to get hit in the head. I mean, it's absolutely nothing now for a batsman to get hit in the helmet. It happens every few overs sometimes, and the commentators just go, oh, that one's hit him in the grill, or that one's hit him on the ear or something, and life carries on. So I think it may be a willingness to play crossbat shots, but I think it's also a lack of technique, because they don't. The outcome is not so tragic if they get hit.
And the quality of their players are getting hit. I mean, I remember Daniel Flynn getting hit badly, and Craig Cumming, hospitalised in South Africa with a helmet, and they're getting through the grill.
Yeah, I remember Michael Papps going into bat against Brett Lee, and he looked like he was hitting a soccer ball or something. He kept getting hit all the time. I mean, he had no idea how to play that bowling at all.
By some bizarre set of circumstances, I think it helped New Zealand win this Test match. They bowled a better line and length. They rolled the Pakistanis. They went in with a batting attitude of almost cavalier, because cricket's not the most important thing in the world, and we got one of the best results in our entire Test history.
That was an amazing innings by McCullum that I don't think has had anything like the attention it should have, and also a really fine innings by Kane Williamson, 190 odd. But because everyone got so swept up in the Phil Hughes tragedy, it was slightly pushed to the background. It was a terrific Test performance. Mark Craig got 10 wickets in the match, an off spinner for New Zealand getting 10 wickets in a match. Got to go back to Bracewell for that.
And I think he averaged 50 with the bat too. He's actually a genuine all-rounder. He hasn't had just a one innings. Every time he goes out to bat, he looks like he can handle himself.
Well, actually, it's a strength of New Zealand. If you think of Watling as coming in at 7, if you're going Watling, Craig, Sodhi, Southey, Bolt, all of them bat well and are all averaging very well, better than some of our batsmen.
Yeah, but it wasn't a total team performance, a massive first innings away from home on a turning pitch against spin bowling that we'd struggled with up to then almost.
Yes, I do think I'm not taking anything away from him, because it was fantastic, one of our best Test performances ever. But I do think we were lucky that we batted the day after that, the Hughes incident and the rest day, and Pakistan never bowled a bouncer the whole day. That the day that McCullum and Williamson batted together, there was no bouncers bowled. So that's quite nice. If you're it's quite nice for a batsman to know that everything's going to be pitched up and you don't have to worry about that.
There was a few crossbat shots though. I remember McCullum putting a couple in the stand, so they weren't entirely kind to them.
No, I mean, it's still Test cricket, but I definitely feel it was muted. I tell you what, though, the New Zealand batting wasn't muted. It was belligerent, and that's what won them the game. They took the game by the scruff of the neck and advanced it so much by scoring so fast.